Randy wrote in with a question on Patreon about college football. That's something you can do as well. Let me pull it up. This is what Randy had to say. He said, the college football playoff is considering expanding to 12 games. What are your thoughts on this? Also, what would be your ideal playoff setting? Should we just get rid of bowl games altogether? Question mark. So first of all, I would not get rid of bowl games altogether. They're still valuable to teams like Tulane, Liberty, Rice, like really small schools who need the exposure and need the money. But it's also true. I mean, I've been I have not been shy about sharing how much I hate bowl games. They're awful. I think of the Georgia-Texas game a couple years ago where Georgia just looked uninterested. Georgia didn't want to be there. And these bigger schools that have aspiration of a national championship, when they get put in the Poinsettia Bowl, they're not excited about that. Hey, I know you wanted to win a national championship, but how about the Holiday Bowl? And they're like, nah, it doesn't do anything for me. I couldn't care less. And bowl games just are not, as a fan of football, I don't get that excited about them. I watch, like, John Boy Media puts out his breakdown, and every once in a while there's a crazy bowl game that has a wild finish, and I go, oh, I should watch the breakdown. But for the most part, unless it's a big high-level game with a good matchup, I'm not going to watch it. I don't get that moved by bowl games. I just don't care. I care way more about the regular season where there are higher stakes and the game feels more meaningful. Now, a 12-team playoff, I think that's solid. I think that's, for me, kind of exciting. Personally, if nothing else other than the fact that it's news and it's change, and any kind of new thing in sports is like, ooh, okay, I'll watch that. But I do want to say that the outcome will be exactly the same. We don't need to have a 12-team playoff because if you're not one of the 4 best ranked teams in college football, you're pretty unlikely to win a national title anyway. Like, we're never going to see the number 10 seed, like Coastal Carolina, is never going to win a national title. That's okay, but my point is I don't know that we need them included in the playoff at all. Now, there might be a team like a 5th-ranked team or a 6th seed, like let's say Florida, who was really good last year, but they lost to Alabama head-to-head and therefore didn't get into the SEC championship game, but might have been better, and maybe Kyle Pitts would have played if it wasn't a meaningless bowl game. A team like that, an SEC team, or one of these really big teams that maybe has one loss and has a bad game, they could come out of nowhere, a 5th or 6th seed to win a title. But for the most part, you're not going to see, the outcomes are still going to be the same. In a 12-team playoff, teams like Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, they're going to remain dominant. But here's what I love about the potential proposed, so it's the committee's considering it, the idea of a 12-team college football playoff. What's cool about it is that it would replace many of these meaningless bowl games that they just don't have any, you're not playing for anything. That's the thing. Here's what I mean when I say it's meaningless. It means that you're not playing for anything other than like bragging rights, or you work all year telling yourself you're going to try to win a championship. And this is why the smaller schools care more, is they work all year saying, we want to win a bowl game. But Georgia isn't working hard all summer to win the Poinsettia Bowl. Georgia has their mindset on a national title game. And when they find out they have no shot for a national title and they're playing in the Holiday Bowl, they don't care. And I don't blame them that much because you worked hard for this, and this is your weird kind of point, side note. And I feel like I'm making college football players sound entitled. I went to Washington State. I had friends who played college football at Washington State. They went to the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. It was a good time. It was a cool trip for them. A lot of those guys are never going to play in the NFL. So for them, it was a cool trip. It was a cool experience. They got to see the naval ship there. They got to go to like Disney World and or Disneyland and have fun. There was a lot of fun stuff they did on that trip, is my point. But for people that are focused on winning a national title, it's hard to get excited for this. So what it would do is, instead of having these meaningless bowl games, it would create more interesting, more meaningful games with really good matchups, I would think, too. And the way it would work is that the top 4 ranked, or the the conference winning teams that were the highest ranked at the end of the season would have a first round bye in the college football playoff. So you would have, so after that, then the number 5 seed would play the number 12 seed. Number 6 would play number 11. The 7th seed would play the number 10 seed. 8 would play 9. And so like last year, it would have been Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Oklahoma would have had a first round bye in the college football playoff. Then you would have had number 12 seed Coastal Carolina play number 5 seed Notre Dame. Texas A&M would have played Indiana. Florida would have played Iowa State. Georgia would have played Cincinnati. I love that. That's interesting. That's exciting. Hey, could Coastal Carolina steal a game from Notre Dame? That's fun. I think that's interesting. Oh, and by the way, Alabama wouldn't end up playing the 12 seed ever because they would play the winner of the 8th and 9th seed game, Georgia versus Cincinnati. What I just never want in college football in any playoff game scenario is I don't want Alabama playing the number 12 ranked team. I don't want the number 1 ranked team in the country playing the number 12 seed. That's not good for anybody. It's not entertaining. That's just a beatdown. Again, Alabama versus Coastal Carolina, Alabama versus BYU. It'd be terrible. It'd be over in 5 minutes. It wouldn't be fun. It's uninteresting. It's not a game I ever want to watch. It's a complete mismatch. Now, this 12-team playoff with a first-round bye for 4 teams is also interesting because, round 1 would have 4 games, maybe 1 on Friday, maybe 2 on Saturday, and then 1 on Monday. Or if you do it at New Year's, you'd have like 1 on Friday and then 1 on 3 games on New Year's Day or 3 games on a Saturday, depending on how you structure it. So that sounds kind of cool. And then you would have the second round to be 4 more games. And I like that because 4 games is manageable to watch in a weekend. For someone who works, and not me, my job is sports, so I could make it happen. But someone who works a day job, has a weekend off, if they wanted to, they could feasibly commit their entire weekend to watching games and watch 4 games over the course of a weekend. And that's not a crazy thing to answer. It's all day in front of your TV on Saturday. Maybe you leave it on Sunday. You come catch whatever part of the game it's interesting, whatever. But having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 different games in a weekend, that's too many. It's hard to track that. It's hard to follow that many games for people who have real jobs and are not sports internet talk show hosts, right? Like I can do that, but my friend who's an engineer can't do that. That's not feasible for him. He loves sports, but he's probably going to skip at least 2 of those games because he can commit all his time, but if games are overlapping, it's not a good mix. So to have round 1 have 4 games, round 2 has 4 games, round 3 has 2 games, and then round 4 is the title game. I love that. It would create good matchups and meaningful games. That's great television. And for the record, I guess it's important to say this is not going to happen until 2023 at the earliest, but it's in talks. It might happen. I'm crossing my fingers. That's what I'm rooting for. And I got to say, it would be cool to see smaller programs maybe steal a game from a bigger heavyweight college football program, a UCF, Central Florida, beating Auburn or beating LSU, or that Boise State Oklahoma game with the trick play, the hook and ladder, and then the Statue of Liberty. Those kind of moments are moments we could get from this that would be kind of exciting, where you have the 12 seed playing the 5 seed, and maybe they upset one of them. But in the end, I do want to be clear. Mostly, you can add more teams, and we're going to have some fun moments. But remember that even adding more teams, it's still going to be dominated by the SEC, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, these blue blood traditional programs that get the best recruits every single year. They're still going to dominate and win titles. So just don't expect a lot of outcome change, even if we add more teams. But what it does do is creates more meaningful games where teams that maybe won't win a title still have something to fight for, and you'll have less people opting out, like Kyle Pitts, the tight end of Florida last year, who didn't play in the bowl game because he's got to worry about the NFL and isn't playing for anything in the bowl game. Like if you skip a playoff game, that looks really bad in the eyes of the NFL. You're like, oh, you're not committed to winning a championship. But you skip a bowl game, the Poinsettia Bowl, nobody cares. So having meaningful postseason football games is a big deal. It's a good idea, and I love it.